What's up, guys? This is Alex from Beyond the Veil Horror Podcast, and today we're going to be doing a review of the horror anthology XX. XX just released today, February 17th, in select theaters and VOD. The first time I heard of this film was when I first watched the movie The Invitation by Karin Kusama. If you've not seen The Invitation yet, I urge you to go check that out as soon as you possibly can. And I've become an instant fan of Karin Kusama. When I realized that I was such a fan of The Invitation, I went to IMDb to check out who this director was and what they've done before. She'd done Jennifer's Body, and she was going to be doing a new movie called XX coming up, which I thought was a feature film by her. Fast forward months later, I realized that this was actually going to be an all-female directed horror anthology, including Karin Kusama. It's comprised of 4 short films directed by 4 female directors, which is just in time for the 8th annual Women in Horror Month this year. And if you don't know what that is, we've been posting on our social media lately some of our favorite choices of women in horror this month. And if you'd like to learn more about that, I urge you to go check out womeninhorrormonth.com or follow the link below. Now, I'm not going to spoil everything here for you with this review, but there are going to be some very minor spoilers in this. It's very difficult to be able to talk about a horror anthology film, or 4 short stories in this case, without divulging a little bit about it. So I'm just going to kind of give you the overall gist of each of these short stories and not really spoil anything. But if you're one of those people that doesn't want to know anything, you might want to wait to hear this review and then come back and tell me what you think after. Now, anthologies typically have sort of a common thread theme. Some of them will be based off, like Southbound was based off of Hell. This film, XX, its common thread is sort of a feminine perspective of horror. So it deals a little bit more with that. Is this the gore fest that you've all been waiting for? Not so much. But it does have some elements in there. The first short that we're presented with is called The Box by Jovanka Vukovic's adaptation of Jack Ketchum's short story, also called The Box. It essentially deals with the woes of motherhood and how you want to try to keep your children and family healthy and safe. At times, it kind of reminded me of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, although it's very loosely related, if at all. It was kind of moody and mysterious and made you wonder what the hell is going on. It's probably the least favorite of the short films, but it's still well shot. The second short is titled The Birthday Party, and it's much more dark and humorous than the others. It was the directorial debut of Annie Clark, who, as you may already know, is Saint Vincent, an alternative solo female musician who did a song in 2014 that was kind of a big hit called Digital Witness. She's also done a lot of soundtrack work in a lot of different movies. The Birthday Party kept me on the edge of my seat at times and made me laugh quite a few times. It's got a very dark humor element to it, and it's very stylized too. I'm actually kind of looking forward to seeing what she could do with a feature-length film, but this is probably one of my favorite of the 4. The third short is titled Don't Fall, and it's actually directed by Roxanne Benjamin, who had also done work in another horror anthology called Southbound, which I actually really enjoyed. Out of the 4 films, Don't Fall probably has the bigger setting, and it kind of ramps up the energy in this one and deals more with a creature feature with a group of friends who are traveling. I actually laughed a couple of times, but it's actually not too bad. I enjoyed it. The final and 4th short film was directed and written by none other than Karin Kusama. It stars a mother played by Christina Kirk, who, if you don't already know, is in a new hit show called Powerless about superheroes dealing with insurance, and she plays the secretary in that show. And it also deals with her son, played by Kyle Allen, who's in the new Hulu original show called The Path. This one particularly gave me that, oh my god, that's what this is feeling. It's definitely a heavy nod, and possibly even the continuation of the classic horror story Rosemary's Baby. All of these shorts were tied together with Sofia Carrillo's stop motion animation, and it was pretty cool, creepy, and creative. Now, the 4 shorts seem to ramp up the energy and the interest from the first to the very last. Now, is this going to be a movie for everybody? Probably not. I could see this movie being a little bit tough to swallow for some fans, depending on what you're expecting to get from it. 1, it's not necessarily everyone's cup of tea. 2, it's not a gore fest. 3, it deals more with a subtle and nuanced approach towards horror, but it does have some pretty great stories and direction. It's very stylized, it has a good flow, the acting's even pretty decent. And I can definitely see that Annie Clark, aka St. Vincent, has a future in horror filmmaking or just filmmaking in general. So I'm definitely looking forward to see what she's got. I don't think it was a bad film by any means. And I think some of my expectations might have made it harder for me to enjoy. But does it stick out when you compare it to other horror anthologies? It's definitely not an over-the-top, wild, gore-fest ride that you would get from something like the VHS Horror Anthology series, or ABCs of Death for that matter. And it's very, very difficult for me to give it an overall rating comparing it to other films. I would much rather compare it to other horror anthology films that I enjoy. So if I had to pick an overall number that I felt that this movie was, I would have to say that I would give it a 6 to a 6.5 compared to other horror anthology movies that I do enjoy. Now, does that mean that I'm going to have the same opinion as everybody else? No. There's no possible way that I could. And this movie may be worse or better than you think my opinion is. But I think I just expected a little bit more punch than what I got from XX. Does that make it a bad film? No. It depends on what you're expecting when you're going in. These are just my opinions and what I've enjoyed from other movies in the past, so they may not always resonate well with you. So with that said, XX is a good film that I will rewatch at some point, and maybe the second time I view it, I'll enjoy it a little bit more. Overall though, I think it just didn't have the punch that I wanted going into this film. I think I might have set my expectations a little too high, and that may have played a part in why I did not enjoy the film. If you do like horror though, definitely check out our podcast that we put out every Monday. It's called Beyond the Veil Horror Podcast. We do themes, we do horror shots, we do a segment that we make up plots on the spot by pulling a name out of a cup, and that always ends up being fun. So if you're interested in horror, maybe finding out some new horror movies that you hadn't heard of, come check us out. But other than that, thank you guys so much for stopping by, and we'll see you next time.